I'm a man. I eat Weetabix. That's that.
This is just a continuous decline. I see.
Yeah, for sure.
Very good. Very good.
The context for that is, so a lot of people think that I came up with that. Like, I say it quite a lot throughout life. I'm a man. I eat Weetabix. Today, I'm gonna expose myself. You know, they tried to get me once and they failed. This time, I'm getting myself. We were playing football in the park in North London Fields. It's a really we started a community project at London Fields nearly maybe 12 or so years ago now, and now like it's grown every single summertime. We have like a group of like people who show up, and we play it like one day of the week. Some team has bibs, and it's just like a nice little get together. About 7, 8 years ago, we were playing, and there was this big, huge guy, 6 foot, I'm gonna say 5 or 6, like big, black, the type who you want to be like, he's my older brother, and then you see the shadow. Yeah,
Silhouette.
yeah. And he collided with me, and he hit the floor, and we both got up. Why are you meowing? Why the fuck you? I just fed you, you piece of fucking shit. Okay. Anyway.
Edit.
Anyway, yeah. Oh, that's not. I'm staying in.
I
Anyway,
know. I know.
we collided, and he went up and went, "Don't worry, I'm a man. I eat Weetabix," and we all died that day. And I've just kept that with me ever since. It's been like one of the things I just say. It's part of the repertoire.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I'm a thief. Anyway, this is Silly Whales. This is a mental health podcast. Before you continue, we might discuss things that are actually I don't know really. We will discuss things around mental health. So it could be things to depression, anxiety, maybe suicidal thoughts and all that stuff. If this isn't the right show for you, that is okay. I do not wish any harm to you. I'm not going to be outside your house with a sniper rifle. Why? Because guns are illegal in the UK. But if this is for you, then welcome. We're fairly chill. We like to enjoy ourselves, We like to have fun, for the most part. How are you
Yeah,
doing today, Joe?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, my work week has started, so I've had the first taste of what the next 3 days will be like. But it's okay. I'm doing fine. It's all good.
For context, Joe works in a supermarket in the town. Where do you live, Joe?
In the city of Worcester, yeah,
Okay, there
there's
we go.
a supermarket that I said this in episode one. It's fine.
You did, but people might not even think about what they might just see this and go, "What is this?" So I'm just filling in
I mean,
gaps.
true, but I don't want to have to say in every episode where I live. It just
Very good
seems
point.
unnecessary.
Very good. Here's a flag, like
Let's just do
on
the
the
intro
map.
again. Okay, hold on. So, me and Alex have known each other for years, right? Let's just bring it all the way back.
Pretty much, yeah. If you're watching this for the first, you have no idea what's going on. We're longtime friends. We do this show as a mixture of two things. We have episodes like the one on neurodiversity and education, where we have a certain topic and we try and stick to it. And then we have episodes like this, where it's episodic and it's like a journal of our lives, and it's more as a time capsule for ourselves to look back on. And if people want to watch and enjoy it and see how we progress as human beings, and then look at it and be like, oh my God, remember like back in 2024 when like Alex and Joe were so wholesome, and now look at them, they're just drug dealers, and now they're like in prison for like extortion and blackmail of government officials and trying to launch a coup of a country. It's good. You guys can look back on that and go, wow, there were good people back then, and now they're gods.
Now they're gods. I like that. I like that twist.
Vanuatu
Yeah.
is mine.
Oh yeah. So we've. I mean, because this is the second episode and stuff is out now, right? Stuff is on sites
Yeah,
on podcast sites, on streaming platforms, or whatever it is. Just mention quickly where we can be heard, and then I'll keep talking. I can't remember.
The world. Now, right now, we are on Boomplay. Never used Boomplay a day in my life. Um, the Podbean app and Podchaser. Spotify's coming soon. I'm just sorting all that stuff out now as we speak. But the most popular place where apparently 13 of you have already tuned in, I published just at 12 o'clock today. Today being the 11th of January 2024. Amazon Music. I think that people have been looking for podcasts on Wales, and I was like, what the fuck is this shit?
Oh, I didn't even think about that demographic that we're going to pull in.
But
Yeah,
they're
the
in
nature
now.
crowd.
They're in. Okay?
They're in.
You came for Wales, and now you're here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's talk
I,
about a week.
well, I was actually going to say, so this is a part of the week, so it's fine. But I've obviously been listening, and you've been editing and listening to ourselves. And I thought about this even after the first episode, like literally like the first 10 minutes. And it's kind of a weird experience, but I realized that we talked a little bit before about how it's quite hard to tell sometimes if someone's, you know, neurodivergent necessarily, or like had really awful experiences or have bad mental health and stuff like that. It occurs to me when I listen to us, I genuinely can't tell. Like I in part because like when I listen to myself, I don't, and maybe it's one of the reasons I'm not so embarrassed by my own like voice and stuff. I kind of listen to myself almost like I'm a specimen or an alien or something. Like to me, my past, the recorded me is like a past me that is not me anymore and feels like a different person entirely. So I find it interesting to listen to myself because I'm like, oh, who's this handsome young individual or whatever. Um, but then I realized that listening to us, even I am like, you know what, we really don't sound like we've had any of the things we're talking about, or we've experienced any of the things we're talking about, which is quite an interesting moment uh, to be like, oh yeah, no, you and I don't sound like we've suffered. Like, which I, to be fair, it's a point about all humanity, right? Like I think, you go to work, like there have been people in my workplace now who I've spoken to and have found out different things about their mental health. Even mentioned that I was going to do a podcast about mental health with you, um, in order to kind of help open up the fact that yeah, like mental health is a thing I will talk about for days or whatever. And it's just interesting the number of people who I was like, oh yeah, these are people I like really think are like sturdy, indestructible, bulletproof, and it turns out that's just not true. But it's just funny hearing myself and thinking the same thing about myself and about you. And I'm like, yeah, no, I understand why this is such a weird part, because there's something about whether it's human psychology or just the psychology we've been brought up with, that the idea of emotional vulnerability is so relatively closed off that we don't know how to not even necessarily tell if someone is in that place, but really just fundamentally not believe that someone is maybe having issues or whatever, even though that's absolutely not true. But yeah, just a little insight I had about like that,
Yeah.
like really struck me when I started listening to us. So if you're also experiencing that, I get it. If you're here listening to either of us and you're like, these guys are talking bullshit, or what do they mean they're autistic or whatever? Like, believe me, I heard myself and I was like, I could not believe that.
Yeah.
Weirdly,
Also, like what does being neurodivergent sound like? Of course, there's certain ailments and conditions in which you look at and you can clearly tell that they have something. Down syndrome being one of them, you can often tell if someone had Down syndrome. But with things like autism, you don't really know unless it's more pronounced in a certain way. But people's conditions and needs vary drastically. So, you might have a kid who their autistic, I guess, I don't want to say tendencies, but how it manifests in itself is something as simple as They are hyperfixated on their schedule for the day. And then you might have somebody who is mute, doesn't speak, never ever spoken in their life, and like shows zero emotion at all times. Like that's the spectrum we're dealing with. It's a very wide spectrum, and it's a beautiful thing. Like the human brain and how it works is fascinating, but it's so fascinating that I'm never going to study it because science is difficult.
I really want to study it a bit. Um, like outside of maybe psychology, I'd be curious to learn about it in a more like neuroscience like perspective. But not right now. My time in education is over. Please let me work for a bit and let me just get money.
Yeah.
let me earn for a little while. That would be nice.
I'm trying to get back into education. That's how bad
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, I'm trying to I started my degree, stopped it because I had other things happening, and then now I'm like I want to work in like psychology and I want to learn more about the field and I want to understand it more. And just in general me working and wanting to be a martial artist of sorts. I've been reading different books and I've been reading the book. Oh, this is where my mind goes blank. But it is by, and the whole story about it is really funny. Not a ha-ha funny, just coincidentally funny. So I was watching a like YouTube documentary at 2 o'clock in the morning because I can't sleep, and one of them was about a UFC fighter named Yuri Prohaska, and he's Polish, I believe, or Czech. My mind's gone blank completely, but his whole mentality comes from a book he read called The Book of the Five Rings, and
Mm.
the whole thing behind the book is written by a samurai who was undefeated. Well, is he samurai or swordsman? I'll say he's more of a swordsman. Miyamoto Musashi, and he was legendary, undefeated, and his whole core principles surrounding what he believes in is a real beautiful thing. So he wrote these books of Five Rings, and he had different chapters, and he wrote them pretty much as he was dying of cancer, or what they thought was cancer. So it has like the earth chapter, the water chapter, the fire chapter, the wind chapter, and then the emptiness chapter. And I'm doing it by audiobook, and the narration is beautiful, but also the way it's translated is perfect as well. Because you can kind of imagine a very stoic Japanese man saying all this stuff. Um, and it's connected with me in a weird way because the things he talks about is things like I'm reading the Earth chapter right now, and he's saying like when you're about to strike your opponent, make sure like your stance is perfect. Make sure you're not like bent over in a certain way. You never hold like certain weapons require you to hold it with two hands. Do that. If you hold it with one, the technique could be shit. And it's like this is so basic, but you forget
Mm.
how like quickly those basic things you need to do fail you. Like I was trying to figure out why my kicks weren't good at the gym a couple of days ago, and I was getting really frustrated. And I was like, "Oh my god, I'm just." I thought I was getting better with my kicks, and now I'm not getting better with my happening. Jesus, oh god! And I realized, wait a second, I'm throwing this right kick or this rear kick with my right leg, but my right arm is still in the air, blocking, trying to protect the punch that isn't coming. If I'm going to throw a kick, my arm has to be extended out with it to generate the power from my hips. And I'm like, oh. And I learned this day one of Muay Thai, and I just wasn't doing it.
Mm.
I'm like, okay, who would have thought? So now, like, I imagine what's going to happen is when I eventually have my first fight in Muay Thai, midway through that fight, I'm going to forget a basic thing. I'm going to, like, forget to keep one of my, like, both my hands by my face so I don't get punched in the face. And I want to use that book as a reference to be like, hey, look, keep the foundations and keep disciplined. And discipline's a very difficult thing for me to grasp sometimes, you know? it's very difficult. That and punctuality are two things that is a struggle. And that's because they're intertwined. They're intertwined, Joe. But that book, honestly, the Book of Five Rings, it's a recommendation.
Yeah, I looked up a little bit on Wikipedia while you were talking about it. I've heard of this book. It's quite an old book, right? Like
Oh yeah,
the guy is like 1600s or something like that.
yeah.
And I've heard this book referenced, and the idea of this book, like Earth being having this like even the way that you did the chapters, I think is something that has been like repeated in different forms of media and in by other martial artists afterwards, like trying to uh, whether by inspiration or essentially to just kind of exhibit or just basically copy the format. It's a very common like this has been referenced a lot, and it essentially it's like this happens quite a lot, I think, where like you get certain people who excel in a field in a certain way, and like one of the interesting things, especially when it comes to like sword fighting and dueling and stuff, that this comes up quite a lot, is you'll have like sword fighting and dueling or any martial art, to be honest. It's just sword fighting is an obvious one where it comes up. And you'll have people like talking about it a lot. And there's a lot of romanticism about martial arts and fighting. Over time, this has been true, not just today, over time. And an interesting thing is always there'll be someone who comes along and just says, like, people are fucking around. People are like doing weird kick flips and doing like weird shit. No, like fucking focus. Like none of that works what you're doing. Like this person is doing this thing. And because so much of it becomes it kind of ends up feeding back into a kind of like the idea of performance, and a lot of martial arts aren't always needed when they're taught. Like a lot of some of it's cultural, some of it's you know some of it is just purely essentially like ritualistic, actually is that what it's called, like a ritual sword? It's like a sword that's not used for actual fighting or anything. Is it ritual or is it another word for it?
I'm not
um
knowledgeable in that field, so I'm not going to act like I am.
Okay, there's like weapons which are like which I can't remember. It's like a It's not a celebratory sword, but it's like a sword used for like events basically and like rituals or celebrations, and they're not designed for combat because it's got like weird shit like flowing off of it, and it's not weighted in that way. It's weighted to be good if you like throw it, but not if you're like actually actively holding it in your hand, stuff like that. There's a lot of this that comes up. He's an example, one of those people who came along and was just like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, this is how weapon like you're wielding a sword. What do you think you're doing?" Kind of thing. And then like, so that's why I think they kind of make these like these moments with a hammer, but they really hammer down on the martial arts philosophy. And yeah, and of course, Japanese swordsmanship always has some philosophical like backing to the whole point of it all. So on, it's very cultural stuff. Nothing ever written at that
Yeah,
time was merely just this is how you do this. It's like this is how you do this, and this is the explanation for the entire view that I have of the world. It's like okay,
yeah,
okay,
but like,
settle down. But
I mean,
no,
he killed a lot of niggas. Imagine that you went your whole career of sword fighting being undefeated. Of course you would, because if he was defeated, he'd be dead. But like, he like beat really famous guys, and it's just like, well, this is what this guy is. He is,
yeah,
you know, for football fans, that he is the Erling Haaland of the sword fighting. He is inevitable. He will eventually score. Musashi's gonna kill you. It's
mhm,
okay. But yeah, that book has been. I'm trying to reshape my viewpoint with things like punctuality. Me and punctuality has been a consistent battle throughout my entire life. And yeah, it is down to ADHD. But some of it is down to just point blank incompetence, man. It is. A lot of it is just rank idiocy. Um, and I see it manifesting. Like there's been times where I've been looking and being like, I need to leave this house in 20 minutes. I'm gonna stare at this clock for 20 minutes. like um and then I'm
mm,
wondering where like, where everything is, and then I'm like, oh, I should have left 15 minutes ago. Damn it, Jesus. And it's always like very similar patterns. And if I'm by myself, it's a problem. With other
Yes.
people, though, with other people, um, I'm fairly attentive to it. So it's like because I don't want to be blamed for like being late, but meeting people, oh my goodness, like meeting people, like just being on time for things like work, meetings, like everything. I've the habit of being late is always there, and it's okay, and it always feels like you're really unlucky with it as well. Late and now I'm late, and I was so close to being on time for the first time in like 6 years. Jesus Christ, and it's always my favorite book is of Mice and Men. It's like the best laid plans of mice and men often go weary or whatever it is, and then
Yeah.
you're like, oh yeah, that's me. See, I identify with it. See, it doesn't have to be. Like, do you know what you could have done? You fucking cunt. You could have gotten the train that was 5 minutes early, but no, you had to press continue on Football Manager once. You had to make sure that you play one more game of Football Manager in your Arsenal save because you signed Wout Weghorst to play up front and he's scoring goals for you and you're enjoying it. So you have to see what happens next. You have to make sure that, Reese Nelson's developing, Well, guess what? Now you're running 5 minutes late and you're anxious as all hell and you're sweating and you're scared and you'd be like, no, everyone's going to try to kill you. But you wouldn't be feeling that way if you just left 5 minutes earlier like you were supposed to.
Have you ever tried like convincing yourself that you literally needed 10 minutes more time than you actually do, or like 15 minutes more? Like, have you ever like gone, worked out, okay, it's going to be half an hour to get to, I don't know, I'm just going to pick somewhere random in London. Like, oh, it's going to take me 40 minutes to get to Victoria Station or something like that. And I'm like, okay, well, in that case, I'm going to leave. So I need 50 minutes. I need 50 minutes. It's going to take 15 minutes for me to get to Victoria Station. 15 minutes is how long it's going to take. Okay, so if I'm going to get there for 40, quarter to two, I need to leave at you know, at 5 to 1 or something. You know what I
I
mean?
do
Like,
it. I do it all the time. I do it all the time. But what
yeah,
happens is that I go, like, I have City Map, and I'm like, okay. So I do it from my house to Bethnal Green. Cool, easy. Oh, it'll take me. I'll get I'll get this. I'll get to Bethnal Green like this. So when's the next train from Bethnal Green to where I need to go? Oh, okay, it takes me 15 minutes to get to like Holborn from Bethnal Green Underground. Cool. I guess I can leave in 10 minutes and I'll get there 2 minutes early. Me leaving the house is the problem. It's like
yeah,
I hate being in the house. It's not a thing. I'm rarely ever in the house. However, what seems to happen is it's like a time vortex. Something happens, or like I'll magically lose something that I've had all day. Like my fucking stupid wallet. I'll be like, where's that? Where's my wallet? I'll search all my jackets, no idea where my wallet is, and all of a sudden it's underneath a letter from 2015, like about a pension scheme that I'm no longer with or some shit. I'm like, how did it get there? And then, yeah,
yeah.
the
There's different names for this sort of thing. I've heard. God, I know there was. I don't know TikTok or whatever, but I remember seeing like a video on YouTube talking about it. It had a bunch of like TikTok, like ADHD TikTok like posts in the video.
I
Um,
immediately don't want to hear it.
no, but like it's literally talking about like fuck, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something like it's either ADHD paralysis or it's like expectation paralysis or something like that. But it's
Yeah, there's a
basically
name
where
for it.
yeah, there's a like a colloquial name that exists for it as well. But it's the whole idea is that like if there's something that's happening in the day, you will literally like not do anything up until the moment that you have to do that thing. Like there'll be something I have to do. Like I actually find this with work because working in a supermarket, you don't work like normal 9 to 5 hours. And one of the issues with that is that I will try to wake up early because it's still good to wake up early. And when I say early, like I might wake up at 9. or something like that, or I wake up at 8 or whatever it might be. But of course, it's not really good to wake up that early if you know you're going to be going to bed like quite late as well because you're going late into the evening. But let's say it's 12 to 6, simple shift, short shift, whatever. I will have this issue where I will wake up at like a pretty decent time. I've got a lot of time. I could be doing stuff, and I will just kind of turn into a person who does the absolute bare minimum right until about an hour before I have to leave. And it's not like I want that to be the case. Like I want to get shit done, but like my brain is like in a waiting mode. Actually, that's what I've heard it called. It's something like that, where it's like I'm stuck waiting for the moment where like the amount of time I need is there. Um, and there was some advice about it. I think like there was one advice which was like don't rely on your brain to try and remember what you're doing during the day or anything like that. Like set an alarm for the next day or set an alarm for when you need to do it and that, and basically just leave it from your brain so you're not thinking about it. So you're in the space where you're like, okay, well, what have I got to do today? And you can check what you've got to do, but basically you're never like actively thinking about it. And then you set an alarm like like at the point that you want to like at least like half an hour before you want to start preparing, like not to leave, but just like to get things done. Then you set an alarm for when you're going to when you need to get shit done. Then you set an alarm like 15 minutes before you need to leave, and then you set an alarm when you need to leave. And you basically do it like that to essentially like create a scenario where you become aware that it's something you need to do. You can act on it then, or you don't have to, but now you're aware of it. And then you have a time when you say to yourself, like, you have to get it done now. And it's so then it's like the moment of like, okay, I'm aware now, and then it's like, okay, I must do it now, kind of thing. I don't know if it will necessarily work. I haven't I tried it once and I had success on one day, but easy placebo shit that can happen from that. So I'm not quite sure if it's actually very effective. But I've had similar shit to you where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, or it feels like I don't know what I'm doing for like hours of the day, and then suddenly I feel like I've got to do everything all at once. And then I'm like, why did I wash like just before I had to leave? Like, why did I wait till now? Why didn't I do that like an hour before? Get that out of the way, and then I could have been on my phone like until I needed to leave or whatever. Like, why do it in the order I did it in? That was not good. But there's just something about like the way my brain's like, be lazy, don't do anything, wait, just wait. You'll be ready in a moment. Then you'll have to go into action, and then it takes you way too long.
Yeah, like
Um,
I'm always struggling because it's like oh okay, I know I need to like it's everything. It's like if I say to somebody, oh, let's play some games tonight, and I'll be like, cool, like 8 o'clock, 8ish. I always say 8ish because that gives me a little bit of like a buffer, you know. And for some reason, there'll always be something that is like more enticing in the moment. Like, oh, there's a YouTube video with like, big yawn from me.
it is 9:40 right now in the
I'm gonna
evening.
I'm gonna make a reference to cut that. um, where's a note?
I don't know.
Yawn and shit talking and shit stalking. Fucking hell. Cool. Where was I?
Just start it again. Like,
Yeah. So like, it'll be like, oh, I have a task to do. So I'm like, oh yeah, like I'll be somewhere like at 8. I want to play games with somebody. Or I'll be online at 8 o'clock or whatever. Sure. I always
mhm,
say 8ish because then it leaves a bit of a buffer. What was 8ish? That could be 7:55. That could be 8:15.
mhm.
I, for some reason, there's always something that's really enticing around that time. Like, oh, here's a YouTube video essay on like the 9/11 conspiracies.
Okay.
3 hours
Yeah.
long. And it's like, if I start this now, I can get halfway through by about 8:30, and that's still 8ish, right? And the next thing you know, Like you're just like, oh, did you know that like the reason why the Tower 7 building like fell is because like all the damage from the original Twin Towers fell onto that, as well as there being structural damage. And then there we go. Guys, this is incredible information. Oh, it's 9:45. What the fuck? Like, you know, and it's like great. And I hate how content is made right now. I hate social media's content and how it's made. Like a lot of videos you see now have like an additional video clip that's on it of like somebody playing GTA. It's like,
Oh, this is a new thing on TikTok, right? And stuff
yeah,
like
but
that.
those videos get put onto YouTube Shorts, and every now
Yeah.
and then I like to indulge, you know. But it's a really annoying thing because I don't. People say, oh, they're making it for ADHD people, because like ADHD attention spans. I'm like, nobody with ADHD is who doesn't. If you care about GTA as well, then yeah, you might be. Ooh, that's a cool little video. But if you don't care, you're not going to pay attention to it. And a lot of people
Yeah,
are going for this stuff.
I actually don't know if that is. Personally, I don't think it is for those people. Number one, I also don't know if it's. I mean, there must be some statistic or like analytic they're using to show that it works, that it's a good thing.
Well, like
But
there's two reasons for it. Like the reasons that you always see is it's like, oh, it's because if you're uploading that video, you're just uploading a clip, so you need to have something with it. So it's not just you uploading a somebody else's clip. So you have to make it your own property in
yes,
a way.
yeah,
So there's that. But also because of attention spans, like you have the big subtitles on the screen as people are talking that
hmm
animate. So your eyes will always be fixed. You have those quick camera cuts. That's because people's brains, like people's attention spans, are apparently so much lower. Like I hate it. It's really annoying. It's really frustrating to see, and like it makes the editing process of these videos take forever. Clearly,
I actually don't even know if it's true. This is just a. This might be a hot take. I don't know how much of that is true. I know people I know people talk about it in that way, but I think there's very easy ways you could talk about this where you say like, hey, it turns out if you, well, firstly, yes, people are basically just plagiarizing other people and then putting a thing on it to make it their content or whatever when actually nothing is happening, when they're not actually providing anything. But also, the quick cuts and stuff is something that we've gotten used to. I think I don't think that's a thing that is. I don't think it was actually feeding into anything. I think it was just something that people genuinely got used to as a concept. And I think if you like most videos, if you didn't cut them in that way and you just had the same content and you had it in a more, I don't know, in a less cut way, I don't think that I would have seen I genuinely don't think there would be that much of a difference, really. Like things like the subtitling stuff, like works really well. I've seen that do really well, and I think that's just a thing of like it's a really good way of like visually getting information that you're audibly hearing across, and that it's very and that is stimulating on top of the audible part and people use the subtitles now. So I think that there's an element of that which actually makes sense. But things like the quick cuts, and so on, and things like just having like random shit on the screen that's completely irrelevant, but it's just to get someone's attention. In many ways, I think it's either somewhat like having another thing on the screen means that if the first thing is boring, the second thing might get a few people, and the the just having like these quick cuts and stuff, I think is a more. I think it fits specifically a certain style of production's not the right word, but like a certain style of tone and a certain style of like um, performance, basically. Things like PewDiePie and stuff like that had this very like, was where I remember it first happening. But you see it on every big YouTuber now, pretty much, where it's just like this, where it's like this really bombastic, like unnecessarily, incredibly fake feeling, and and you can tell that they wouldn't ever actually interact with people like that in real life, and it's just unnecessary, almost oratory style performative way that is just overwhelming and
yeah.
just really, and honestly, I think the editing carries it more than the actual performance does. I think the editing is like done, and sometimes the editing is done to distraction. Like I will notice, like I used to not notice it, and then I notice it more now because I'm aware, because it wasn't, because now I'm seeing it a lot more, and where it's done and it doesn't quite fit the performance, I can feel it and see it and experience it in a way that's actually quite awkward. So I don't know. I don't actually think that that's necessarily like I might be totally wrong about this. Obviously, different generations of people. Obviously, we're not that old, but like a very young group, a demographic is taking in this content. So it's really hard to like tell exactly. I mean, it could be like, I mean, kids like react really well to just high levels of stimuli. That was true when we were young. That was true when our parents were young. It's just something that didn't exist back then in the same way. So I don't know if it's anything changing really. And I think a lot of it is just people ad hoc saying a bunch of stuff about like about society based on like these really minor things that again I'm sure that there's certain studies that will show that to be true as much as there are other studies as well as other studies I'm sure that will show something that I've there's some inkling of what I'm saying is correct as well, but that's my hot take. um Obviously there might still be reason to be worried. I'm not saying that there's no reason to be worried, but and there are definitely reasons to be worried about social media in general, but
Yeah.
I'm not quite convinced about this particular element of it. At least that's just my little rant. Sorry about that.
Well, no, I think it's like it's very much a it's super easy to get lost with social media. I think it's one of those things where like I've seen people like waste their time on social media. I don't want it to go too much along those. I don't want this to to steer too much into that topic.
No, no.
But like it's one of the many reasons why people procrastinate, why people don't do things. It's because of things like social media. And we go after kids with this stuff. I remember telling you the other day, like I wrote a poem about this whole like generational gap thing where everyone has to shit on the generation that
Yes, yes.
came, and it was like I saw it today. I had like a colleague be like, "Oh my goodness, everyone's just on these social media platforms, whatever." I'm like, but when I'm cycling my bike, when I've come close to dying, it's not because of a child on their phone. It's because of an adult on their phone. I had a mum nearly crash into the back of me because she
Mm,
was on fucking Instagram. Like, what the fuck are you doing? It's shit like that really gets me on my nerves because it's people who, because they feel like they're not addicted to social media, they feel like it's okay that like they're unwillingly controlled by it all. So they're on
yeah,
Instagram while they're driving, or they're like taking a Snapchat fucking wherever the fuck it is, um, while they're like walking about whatever, or they're like they're making like a stupid fucking TikTok on the train. I'm like, oh my, I don't get it. I don't get it. Um,
yeah. Audience,
but
take note.
yeah,
We will do an episode on social media because not only will it just come up in normal conversation because we do talk about it quite a bit, but it's it's really interesting both from like our perspectives personally, but also just like generally the stuff we've discussed about it and everything, and the effects it has on people's psychology and mental health and stuff. I think it's really interesting, positive
all
and negative.
13 of you, all the 13 listens, man. Like 8 listens on the first episode, and I can honestly tell you, since it's been up on like these streaming platforms, I've only listened to it on one of them, on Amazon Music. So that means some poor son of a bitch has been like, I want to look about whales, and they saw that little blue whale with a fucking stupid hat on his head, and they're like, oh, this is gonna discuss different whales and stuff like that. I don't know, a beluga whale or whatever the fuck it is. And then they hear our fucking voice and they're like, what the fuck is this? But they've stayed.
We could do a little discussion about whales. I'm up for it.
I know fuck all about whales. You
Yeah.
know,
Okay.
like yeah, like don't hunt them. That's it.
Okay. Good. Good. Iceland. Please put the legislation in or prevent the destruction of the legislation that is preventing wailing at the moment. Just yeah. Anyway, back to normal discussion. back to what's going on with us. Um, yeah, how have you felt about all of this? Like doing all this?
It's been good. It's been like I've been honestly, I've been hating it because I know that I'm doing something that I want to do, and for me, when I have something that I enjoy and I like, I immediately look to find the problems with it. And at the moment, the only problem with it is that I'm trying to find a problem with it. So it's like I'm in my own way. Like we recorded the first episode nearly 2 weeks ago, and it only really went up today properly, and that's down to me. That's also down to like me overthinking it, and that's down to me feeling afraid of it being really shit. And I had to come to the like honest conclusion with myself. If this is the third like episode of a first ever podcast thing, it's probably going to be shit. Like there's gonna be issues, but like in a way, it's kind of egotistical of me to think that this is gonna be perfect and everyone's gonna love it, and then we're gonna have money, and then we're gonna take over Liechtenstein, and then we're gonna be, the drug gangland kingpins that we're destined to be. We're gonna be John McAfee one and John McAfee two. But like at the end of the day, this is a podcast in which I'm probably going to look back on. I'm going to actually listen to it in about 5 years' time, and they're going to be like, "Oh my god, what the fuck was I on about?" And I'm probably going to end up listening to it with you.
Oh, it's
Hey,
I,
you
I'm
know,
already happy. I'm already happy with this. I've been really I've been feeling good because of what we're doing. I it was a good idea you had, and I'm glad that we have actually like gone and done it. By the way, you're slightly wrong when you mentioned the first episode. That was literally a week ago. We did the
oh
first
shit,
episode.
time flies, man.
Well, it sounds like time is not flying for you because you said it was
Well,
2 weeks ago.
that's the thing, but that's the thing. Time feels like it's flying, but it isn't. In my mind, January. Well, I feel like we're in a football match and we're still at added time. I still feel like I'm in 2023. Like
Oh,
it,
really? Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I view it like this. Okay, it's a football match, and there's been loads of fouls. And I think those fouls have been the Ukraine war and the current issues in the Middle East, and those have been like I've been seeing lots of different like infographics and like different just informations have been flooded in, and I can't escape it. If it's not on the news, it's on social media. If it's not on social media, then it's on Reddit, which is also
Mm.
social media. But like it's everywhere, and that has slowed time down for me because it's like very emotional and very taxing. So it feels like it's just been stoppage time, and they've just been adding on time, and it kind of felt really weird when it was New Year's Day, and I was like, it's 2024, and I don't like New Year's. I've never been a fan of it. I've hated it all. It's like Happy New Year, go fuck yourself, man. Like nothing's changed. You
Sure.
know. Oh, remember on Facebook when like people used to post New Year, new me. Ah,
I mean,
Jesus.
people say that stuff. I haven't heard anyone say it so far, which is good.
Yeah, because you're not friends with, well, hopefully not with 13-year-old girls, and well, no, maybe you are friends with like 55-year-old women. But my cat just fell down the stairs. I literally heard him fall down the stairs. Trust
I
me,
know you
I've
don't.
been there.
I know that you don't mean it in a bad way, but it's just a very gendered way that you described the people who say that sort of thing.
Oh,
Even though I know you
because
don't mean that
because
badly,
I'm
regardless.
literally referencing the only time I've actually heard people say it, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
literally in year nine.
yeah.
Like but yeah, no, like the male equivalent I've heard is New Year, New Alpha, and I heard that in person at
Oh,
the
that's so
gym.
much worse. That's so
Okay,
much worse.
so and do you know like a Final Destination movie where the character says something and they think they're really cool and then they just die? That is
Oh
what I was
yeah.
hoping would happen. I was like, yeah, new year, new alpha, and then like a dumbbell just falls from the sky and just kills him. Like, like, but no, it wasn't gonna happen, was it? But yeah, man, like, you just we just go through this, and you are right that this has been really fun. It's been good. It's been good. Um,
I mean, this is
but
already
some
the. Sorry, sorry.
no, go no, no,
I am
you
getting
go,
a
you
call.
go, you go, you go.
I bullied my way in.
Yeah,
Um,
you did.
like, I mean, this is the third episode or whatever, and this is only just now going out for both of us. Like, we're only just like we're only now going to start seeing a lot of this. You are much more involved in the production side. You are seeing you're seeing the analytics because I haven't even I didn't make the accounts and stuff. From my perspective, I'm sitting here. You've done all of the research, all of the work, everything to kind of get this sorted. I'm just a voice, right? And I'm just kind of like sitting here talking with you. And so for me, this is more like it feels more like a kind of a play session almost when we're talking to each other and stuff. Not in like a insincere way or in like a I don't care about where this is going or anything like that. But like I think there's naturally going to be like a different feel between you and me in this respect. Um, and but I'm glad you're enjoying it at the very least. I was just going to say like I think I've been feeling a bit more happy about things in general, knowing that there's something productive that we're doing happening and moving forward. Like I've realized how much creating things is an enjoyable experience. I really, really, really want to start doing things that are like creative or proactively like doing things like learning to cook better and
Oh
or like
yeah, yeah,
or even like getting into making like stuff with like wood or things like that. That's like the thing I've been thinking about for a long time. Um, getting a bike so I can go to further places and go to and do stuff maybe around here that doesn't require me using a bus or having to that is somewhat unreliable and is and is expensive relative. Well, it's not even that expensive actually. It's not bad here. If you did move here, like it's I think the max limit is like £5 for the day. Like literally
okay.
the day limit is like £5, so it's actually pretty decent for like a bus
Yeah,
service.
but like as you're saying, like being creative and stuff, like putting all
Mm,
this together, um, it's been good for me. Like mental health is mental health, you know. Like it goes up and down. Right now, I can't complain. Things are okay, you know. Things are okay, and like there's actually been moments of these 11 days, 11, 12 days of the year where I've actually gone, whoa, you're actually feeling quite good. And most of the time, like especially if it's like like a people specific issue, I
mm.
forget that people exist if they're not in my life properly, and that gets other people
100% the
really
same.
upset. That gets people really upset with me. So then, like, oh, like you haven't messaged me in a while. I'm like, well, what I don't like about that is that it puts all the pressure on me to then message you. You know what? Like, it's not an ADHD thing. It's you need to message me if you want me to think about you. Because where are you? You know? And
Yeah,
it's like,
I mean, the counter to it is why didn't you message me then?
yeah, like, you know, and it's okay. It's okay. Like, and what I've noticed is my anxiety levels have like hit a level where I'm really chilled out about things now. Things that
Mm.
used to get me really fucking like, ah, my goodness, like really tense. They don't bother me anymore, man. Like, I've been getting the comment that I sound like I'm always high. I'm like, yeah, probably. Like, because generally I'm in a place where like, oh, this bad thing is happening. It's okay, you know.
Mm.
What else am I gonna do? Like I remember back in like I think it was like September time. Uh, I was late somewhere and I was panicking. I was really sweaty and I was like close to tears and I was shivering and I was like, oh, everyone's gonna hate me. Blah, blah, blah. No one cared.
Right.
And that same situation happened like middle of December, and I was like, oh, guess what? I'm not sweating anymore. I'm not shivering. People know I'm going to be late. And guess what? I'm always late. So everyone knows going to be late anyway. So no one's really going to be upset. It is what it is. You know,
Mm.
you can work on your punctuality, but don't put pressure on yourself. And next thing you know, I'm not anxious, I'm not feeling that pressure anymore. And I think that's what helps people improve, you know? If you
Yeah,
pressure somebody to improve, they probably won't. But if you let them do their own thing, either they'll figure it out for themselves or they'll just keep going downhill. So here we are.
yeah. I actually think a really interesting part of this podcast, because we are doing this. I mean, we have so far done it every week, which is not saying much. This is the second week, but we have done, right?
Yeah.
And I think what will be really interesting is when we start reaching. I mean, for me, it really does. Like, there are moments where I am awash with issues and anxieties and depressions and whatever, all of a sudden, and it really does. Like, it really does feel bad,
Yeah.
and and I suddenly, like, you'll message me and I just won't reply and things like
Oh yeah, yeah. I thought it was gonna happen today. I was like, oh shit.
that. No, no, I'm pretty good at the moment. But that's the thing. I'm really curious to see how this, talking about this now, and the fact that this is a mental health podcast. I'm actually really curious to do an episode where the point is to represent how we're feeling, and know that, me talking to you about this, even if people are listening, which I don't really care about, like, but talking with you and being like, yeah, I actually really do feel shit. If this was just me and you hanging out and nothing else, that this wasn't the topic of discussion or the point of this podcast, I probably wouldn't have turned up, and things like that. Like, I'm
Yeah.
really curious to see that unfold, because it will happen.
Oh, I'm very like emotionally, I'm surprisingly stable. But things do often go wrong in sequences. So then sometimes I'll be like, oh, things are okay. I missed my train. My feet are wet from rain. My team lost the game. I feel like shit. Um, like, somebody said something mean on social media. Everything's bad. That will probably happen in the next couple of days because that is just how things are.
Mm.
However, I kind of like the idea of me coming in and like having a place to talk about shit. No, it's just more like, I wish I could maybe like have something repeat itself. Like in a morbid way, a stress test of being like, I wanna be make me feel like not suicidal, but close to suicidal again. And let's see if I still wanna do silly wells, you know. But
It's a
until
weird,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's a weird desire for sure. But I mean, I kind of almost had that. Like this, I've had like a persistent cough. It's meant I've had to mute a lot when recording these things, and or like I'm sneezing and stuff like that. And last week when we did the episode about, actually when we did episode 1 and when we did the episode about school, like, I was not feeling good, and as it turned out, that got much worse. Like, like, actually, no, that was this week when we talked about school. Either way, the day before that, I felt fucking awful. Monday was an awful time for me. Really hated it. And Sunday, I was like in work and I felt awful, but I knew I had to just go in because I was, but in part because I was worried about what they would think if I didn't turn up, and if they like would have ideas about what had happened. But also, I just didn't want to get a really bad side, but I just went in. And I thought, you know what, if I feel really shit, I'll say I feel really shit. I need to go home. So, it's fine. When I'm at work, I tend to be a lot more forward in that way. But like before I get there, I'm quite like anxious and stuff about it. Um, so I thought, if I'm going there, then at least I'll make the decision when I'm there if I feel that bad. Um, so we were initially going to record that school episode on Monday, and I said no, but we were going to record because I was in such a state. But we were going to record it on like Tuesday or Wednesday, and I felt good enough that it was okay. But that was illness, and I'm okay with illness kind of fucking things up like that. And I'm not going to, like, especially because I was worried that it would just come through the audio wise, it would just sound terrible. Like, I'd have to constantly be muting myself. It would be hard to respond to you. I'd be like coughing and spluttering, and I would sound like nasal and that, which I'm sure I do right now to an extent because it's still with me.
Yeah, you sound just fine.
But all of that sort of stuff, I can understand. I can give myself like leeway for that. But I'm kind of in the mindset now where like I really do want to, you know, I'm really like you, kind of morbidly curious that like if and like kind of now motivated to be like if I do feel shit, not only will I not hide it, but I will specifically go out of my way to show it to you in the sense that I want to be like, hey, I feel like shit. I know we need to record something today. I really don't want to record it. Let's record, kind of thing. Um, Specifically because I don't want, not for a performative reason, but specifically because I don't want this podcast to only be when I feel good mentally, since that is very specifically what the podcast is about. Um, I kind of like the idea, both from a production standpoint of keeping this going, like weekly, but also just being like, hey, yeah, this is the mental health time capsule. This is exactly the point of this. Like, let's and being able to say yes, and to be clear to those listening and just in general, I'm not going to always do that because I'm sure there will be days where either you or I are in really bad states and we are not fucking around, and that's fine. But there are just moments and interesting points where I think it would be it's to me interesting to be motivated towards in moments like that to be like, yeah, let's like do this because what are we here if not to be open and vulnerable in the way that we kind of set out from the beginning and feel, hey, sometimes we won't want to do it, but like in this case, fuck it. And basically just have that knowing that. And who knows? I don't know if that would even be good content for people to listen to. I don't fucking know. But I recognize that that's kind of what the point of this is to discuss that. And if we're just feeling, if we're kind of in good spirits all the time, I think that's missing the point when we know that we both have those moments for us to hide it, I suppose is what I mean. I don't want to hide it all the time. So,
Yeah, like I definitely don't want to hide it. Like the reason why you're right. The reason why this podcast exists because I don't want to hide it. The idea of me going like, hey, let's have a podcast, and then we only discuss our highs and we don't actually pretty much discuss when we're low, then there's not really a podcast on mental health. It's a podcast on just us talking shit.
yeah.
We gotta talk about, the times when we're feeling really down and pretty much flat out depressed, because we both have depression and we both have like a lot of anxiety about different things. And if we had started this podcast in like the early months, the early days of November, it would have been terrible. And we actually were talking about doing it as well. In that time,
Mm.
it would have been a really different podcast. It would have been me being very open and me to say, hey, look, I'm fighting a lot of things and I don't want to be here right now. It's tough. But we're here. We started it when I'm in a better place where I'm feeling. I don't believe in the idea of happiness per se, which is why my album's called The Happiness Project. But, you know, like to put it bluntly, certain people have left my life for the better. I've invited certain people in. I've made diplomatic changes to who I am and what I do. And those won't last forever, but right now it's working for me. Um, like little things. Like I blocked a few people on Instagram because I don't like them. Like simple as and I find it weird that they're always viewing my stories before anybody else. How do I know that? Because I check who watches my story because I had someone who was stalking me. Boom, straight up. And I'm like, I feel like you're connected to it, so I'm gonna block you. Fuck you. Um, and that just easy, easy things like that. And that's where we're at. We're at a place where right now we're enjoying our lives. Well, I wouldn't know about enjoying, but we're content in our lives right now, and we're not in a state of crisis. But I feel like we're both ready for what crises can be sprung upon us.
Yeah, I've had my time here to settle down. I think that's been a big thing. Like this is now we I've essentially hit the this is well I will hit 3 months in like 2 weeks of living in Worcester.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
So it's not been a hugely no, actually, sorry, 3 months has already happened. Living here in this house where I'm at right now will be next month. Um, Wait, let me just think. Sorry, I've October, November, December. Yeah, so I've passed the 3 month period, but like altogether, if I think about all the weeks I've actually been in Worcester, probably we're close to 3 months just around now, like getting close to it. Like not at home, not elsewhere, like all that stuff. Um, so that's so I think for me, like I am kind of reaching a settling point to an extent that is going to be good. And this, on top of everything, I think, and me feeling a bit better, is helping me through stuff. Like I'm taking on new shifts at work, which I think might be a bad idea, but I've decided I'm going to experiment with it, and I want to do it because ultimately I am looking for new work, and I know that that work will be full time. So in that respect, I don't want to be like too caught out by not because I'm currently doing part time, just to be clear. I don't want to be too caught out by the number of hours, like even if the times are really good. I don't want the number of hours to like overwhelm me too much. So I'm taking on a bit more, and also money is money, and it's actually been kind of nice knowing that I'm probably going to be saving properly from now on because I'm earning like you know 2.5 times the rent or something like per month or whatever. So we're getting out of that. I've only got like 250 quid at the end of the month phase.
Yeah,
It's like, oh,
yeah,
I've got like 750. We're looking at better odds there.
yeah,
Um,
man.
so yeah,
I'll say this now.
I'm in a good place in that respect.
I'll say this now. I am ridiculously proud of you each and every single day. Like,
Oh,
like
thank you.
it is the God honest truth. If God is looking and he believes that I'm being honest, in which you better. Um, it's just it's good. It's good to see, and love you to the end of the earth because might as well.
Yeah,
It's just yeah,
I was going to say my brother's doing really well at Manchester as well, and like that's been like a really nice thing. We've actually had, weirdly enough, we've sort of synced up in terms of him finishing uni and me moving here and kind of doing stuff together. He's got a new job. He's getting a new job. He like just found out he's got a new job, and like that's made me really happy. And the same kind of pride, at least I feel about him, like just being proud of him. Like if that's how you feel of me, then that's a really nice compliment. Like thank you.
yeah.
It's
Because out of
yeah.
all of us, like um, me, you, Toga, Samson, um, at the moment it's me, you, and Toga from like secondary school lot. I am the baby of the litter, effectively. So like I was the youngest of that, and I was like, hey, look at that. We're all progressing up. We're all doing really good. Toga's doing really good. We might get Toga on here for half an hour or so at some point.
Oh yeah, that'd be
Um,
fun.
it I feel like there will be setbacks, of course, but we are heading in a good direction. Um, and I enjoy that. I really enjoy that. I'm looking up. I'm on a website right now called Headliner, and they create little clips for podcasts. I'm like, yay! Look at that. We're doing good things. I've been staring at it for the past hour and a half. And it's just like cool. I know what I'm gonna do. Even not today or tomorrow, but who knows? And it's like, look, we're going in the direction we want to go in. I feel like right now, where I'm at, I've got my album coming out. I did say by the end of the year, but end of the year, by the end of this month. Um, and I'm hoping to hit that, but I might end up re-recording all of it in a professional studio with an engineer. I don't know yet, but whatever happens, I'm gonna be really happy with it. I'm gonna just like work through it. There's a couple of new pieces that I've written that I think will fit in perfectly, and I'm like, look, the happiness project is exactly that. It is a project of discovering happiness and the idea of whether it is this or not. And it's like it doesn't really tell a congruent story. If that's the right word. Who knows?
Mhm.
It's very much like a take it as you take it, and then you can enjoy it. You don't have to enjoy it, but I'm enjoying making it, so it's all good.
Yeah, and to the point, because I didn't really mention it when you talked about this stuff in the first episode, but in keeping with what we were talking about before, I am also really proud of the the I mean, like the progress you've made like recently in all of this. Like I love that for you like so much. Like that this is now becoming like such a real thing. Like all of this happening, like this what we're doing right now and everything else you're doing is like this is stuff that we talked about and you have been like has definitely been there and it's been in our imaginations, but it's not been something that I can actually like send someone a link to. And I'm really, really happy that this is now a thing. You have files and you have like you've been in studio and you've recorded and all this stuff I get to see in real life when you like or whatever when you do a poem or you do a poem on stage or whatever and stuff like that. All of this stuff, I'm like super happy that this is now actually like a genuine thing outside of that, and will have hopefully a legacy and hopefully be much more than that for you in the long run. Like genuinely.
I'm not crying, guys. You are.
And you're not the litter. You've always had the more interesting life in my mind compared to like me and everyone else. Like you
Nah.
you've done a lot more things and a lot more interesting things overall. Let's be real. You certainly got an interesting CD. Let's just put it that way.
And to the person listening to this, I don't know who you are. You could be someone who knows me personally, knows Joe personally, or maybe you don't know either of us, and you're actually looking for something to do with Wales. I'm also proud of you. Why? Because you clicked on this fucker. No. I'm proud of you because like all of us, we're going through something. Something's happening. Our lives are going through very different courses, and you might be dealing with something that is completely alien to myself and Joe, but maybe there's something that's connected with you, be it my issues of punctuality, be it just a general anxiety of moving to a new city, a new part of the country. Um, I hope there's something in here that's made you go, do you know what? Things could be worse, and they might get worse, but guess what? I'm gonna get better anyway. And I hope that you find that drive to keep going. Because I'm here to tell you right now, please keep going. Not for me, not for Joe, not for your best friends, not for your dog, not for your cat, not for a random goldfish somewhere in a pet shop. For you, because you are good. You fucking cunt.
Well said. Well
There
put.
we go.
Yeah, this is going to be hard to. This episode is going to be hard to show my mum, and continuously this will probably be true, I suppose. But here we go.
Why?
It's just certain language that she doesn't particularly like, and it's fine.
Ah, yeah. I don't think I'm ever gonna show my mom any of these episodes. Like,
I'm definitely going to show my family some of this stuff, like, or
ah,
at least I'm going to mention it at some point and be like,
fair enough.
yeah, by the way, we're
Yeah,
doing this.
fair.
Once we're like 20 episodes in or something or whatever, then I'll be like, yeah, by the way, I've been doing a podcast for the past month or two or whatever.
Once we're doing live shows at the Apollo Theater.
No, I'm not going to be that kind of guy. No,
Oh,
no.
jeez. But yeah. I
Yeah,
think that might be it, right?
yeah, I've got nothing else to say. I think I'm good for this week.
Yeah, that was a nice. Togo was saying, by the way, you guys need to learn how to finish. Like, he's right. He's right. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna say this. We're gonna take 2 steps to the rear and get out of here. We're in the wind. See ya.
Love you.
Leave, Craig. Get the fuck out.
Leave.
Craig, leave. Oh, it's actually stop, isn't it? That's it. Stop.
Leave. Stop.